About 300 years ago, a young couple went on a walk in Epping Forest. After a while, they noticed they were being followed and decided to confront the person. As it turns out, it was the father of the girl who disagreed with this relationship. Blinded by anger, the father killed his daughter and dumped her in the nearby pool. The boy soon committed suicide at the same spot. Not long after, strange things started happening in this area. The waters of the pool transformed into a dark, impenetrable black colour. Wildlife began to die at its edges, and then the ground soon became barren. Then the bodies started to appear. In 1887, a woman killed herself at the pool, and not much later, a young servant named Emma Morgan also killed herself as well as her child. Over the years, many people have died, either by suicide or murder in Epping Forest. It is even said that the pond calls people to its edges and drives them to kill themselves. One autumn night, the Earl of Shrewsbury was returning to his home at Alton Towers when an old woman suddenly appeared in the road ahead of his horse and coach. The coach stopped to find why she was there, at which point the old woman begged for a coin. The Earl cruelly dismissed her, so the old woman stated that she would place a curse on him. The old woman told the Earl that for every branch on the old oak tree that fell, a member of the Earl's family would die. The Earl dismissed this and carried on his way. That same night, a violent storm caused a single branch from the old oak tree to break and fall. Later that evening, a member of the Earl's family suddenly and mysteriously died. Now, firmly believing the power of the curse, the Earl is said to have ordered his servants to chain every branch together to prevent other branches from falling, and to this day, the oak tree still remains chained up. The legend of Black Shuck is probably one of the oldest in Britain. One town legend from 1577 says this giant hellhound killed 2 people who were kneeling in prayer after knocking down the church doors amid a flash of lightning. The ghostly apparition then travelled 12 miles away to Blithburgh Church, the stories say, where it killed 2 more people. The first known written text describing Black Shuck goes back to 1127 in the town of Peterborough. Immediately after the arrival of Abbot Henry of Prato to the Abbey of Peterborough, there was quite a kerfuffle. Many men both saw and heard a great number of huntsmen hunting. The huntsmen were black, huge and hideous, and rode on black horses and on black he-goats, and their hounds were jet black with eyes like saucers and horrible. This was seen in the very deer park of the town of Peterborough, and in all the woods that stretched from that same town to Stamford, and in the night the monks heard them sounding and winding their horns. Witnesses said that around 20 to 30 of these hellish beings stayed in the area through Lent all the way to Easter, a period of about 50 days. The events of 1127 are known as the Wild Hunt. Anyone who has seen a black shuck described a large dog with black, mangy fur. These dogs would supposedly be larger than normal, with some even as big as a horse. They were foaming at the mouth as if deranged, rabid, or ravenously focused on hunting for their next meal. According to one description published in 1901, he takes the form of a huge black dog and prowls along dark lanes and lonesome-filled footpaths where, although his howling makes the hearer's blood run cold, his footfalls make no sound. But such an encounter might bring you the worst of luck. It is even said that to meet him is to be warned that your death will occur before the end of the year, so you will do well to shut your eyes if you hear him howling. Shut them even if you are uncertain whether it is a dog fiend or the voice of the wind you hear. You may perhaps doubt his existence, and like other learned folks, tell us that his story is nothing but the old Scandinavian myth of the Black Hound of Odin, brought to us by the Vikings. Alexander Bean was born in East Lothian during the 16th century. His father was a ditch digger and hedge trimmer, and Bean tried to take up the family trade, but quickly realised that he had little taste for honest labour. He left home with a vicious woman named Black Agnes Douglas, who apparently shared his inclinations and was accused of being a witch. After some robbing and the cannibalisation of one of their victims, the couple ended up at a coastal cave in Benane Head, between Girvan and Ballantrae, where they lived undiscovered for some 25 years. The cave was 200 yards deep, and the entrance was blocked by water during high tide. Sawney and Agnes produced 8 sons, 6 daughters, 18 grandsons and 14 granddaughters. Various grandchildren were produced of incest between their children. Lacking the inclination for regular labour, the Bean clan thrived by laying careful ambushes at night to rob and murder individuals or small groups. The bodies were brought back to the cave where they were dismembered and eaten. Leftovers were pickled in barrels, and discarded body parts would sometimes wash up on nearby beaches as part of the clan's way of making the people think of wild animals responsible. The body parts and disappearances did not go unnoticed by the local villagers, but the Bean clan stayed in their cave by day and took their victims at night. The Bean clan was so secretive that the villagers were unaware of the murderers living nearby. As more significant notice was taken of the disappearances, several organised searches were launched to find the culprits. One search took note of the cave, but the men refused to believe anything human could live there. In a frustrated quest for justice, the townspeople lynched several innocents and disappearances continued. Suspicion often fell on local innkeepers since they were the last known to have seen many of the missing people alive. One fateful night, the Bean clan ambushed a married couple riding from a fair on one horse, but the man was skilled in combat, thus he deftly held off the clan with sword and pistol. The Bean clan fatally mauled the wife when she fell to the ground in the conflict. Before they could take the resilient husband, a large group of fairgoers appeared on the trail and the Beans fled. The fairgoers took the survivor to the local magistrate, who was informed of this experience. With the Beans' existence finally revealed, it was not long before the king heard of the atrocities and decided to lead a manhunt with a team of 400 men and several bloodhounds. They soon found the Bean clan's previously overlooked cave in Benane Head, thanks to the bloodhounds. Upon entering the cave by torchlight, the searchers found the Bean clan surrounded by human remains, with some body parts hanging from the wall, barrels filled with limbs, and piles of stolen heirlooms and jewellery. The town of Gavan, located near the scene of the murders and debauchery, has another legend about the Bean clan. It is said that one of Bean's daughters eventually left the clan and settled in Gavan, where she planted a dual tree that became known as the Hairy Tree. After her family's capture and exposure, the daughter's identity was revealed by angry locals who hanged her from the bough of the Hairy Tree. Since around 1910, drivers and cyclists have reported suffering unusual accidents along the road between Post Bridge and two bridges. In many cases, the victims reported that their vehicle had jolted or swerved violently and steered off the side of the road, as if something had taken hold of the wheels and wrenched it out of their control. In most instances, the victims ran into the verge and survived. Their experiences remained a local curiosity until June 1921, when a Dr. E.H. Helby, a medical officer for Dartmoor Prison, was killed when he lost control of his motorcycle combination. Two young girls, children of the prison governor, who had been riding in the sidecar, survived. Several weeks after Dr. Helby's death, there was another incident in which a coach driver lost control, injuring several passengers who were thrown out of their seats. Then on 26th of August 1921, an army captain reported that a pair of invisible hands had taken hold of him and forced his motorcycle off the road, after which the story was picked up by the newspapers in London and the story became known nationwide. In Supernatural Dartmoor by Michael Williams, there is a story told by journalist and author Rufus Endell. He claimed that while driving near Post Bridge on an unstated date, a pair of hands gripped the driving wheel and I had to fight for control. He managed to avoid a crash and the hands disappeared as inexplicably as they had come. He requested that Williams not publish the story until after his death for fear of ridicule. Not all reported incidents occurred in moving vehicles. In one incident in 1924, a woman camping on the moor with her husband reported seeing a hairy hand attempting to gain access to her caravan during the night. She reported that the hand retreated after she made the sign of the cross.